Good morning, and welcome to another exciting episode of Zone 623. I'm your host, Dylan McElroy.
And Dylan Hendricks.
How have you been doing, Dylan?
I'm pretty good. Can't complain. How are you today?
It's been a good week since we last met.
It's pretty good. So, the first topic that we wanted to discuss is the ninja-style headbands. How do you feel about the NBA banning the ninja-style headbands?
Well, from the research that I've done, it seems like they're banning it for a safety reason, but I don't really understand that. Like, if it's a safety reason, then why didn't you ban it last year? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if it's so much of a safety hazard, then why did y'all let the whole league wear them, for a whole season?
Me as a player, whenever I used to wear stuff like that, personally, I find they don't come off. It never came off of me. And then watching players like Jimmy Butler, Drew Holiday, De'Aaron Fox, and other players who kind of like started the trend, I didn't see them that like it come off of them either. Like I can understand the safety hazard if it would like come off a lot, but it doesn't really come off.
From my experience wearing them, I like them. I don't like putting on the normal headband, especially because whenever I play in them, I usually pull my hair back halfway up, and the regular headband is just hard to get on, and I find it very easy. Me personally, mine does slip a little bit, but I mostly think it's because I have nothing to grab onto whenever my hair is pulled back. You have a little bit of texture in your hair, so it has something stopping it. But with me, it will go back eventually, but it's never came off. I had to make little adjustments, but you make those little adjustments, whenever you're doing a free throw shot or something like that.
Yeah. And I feel like the only way that like someone else would happen to take it off is if it would be like a flagrant foul, because you tie it right behind your head, and so the only way like somebody should be that close to your head would be a flagrant foul.
Right. And it seems like the things that they're trying to review here are the length and size. Like they want a more consistent length and size. But like I said, it was fine last year, And it's not the first time the NBA's done rule changes, because David Stern changed the dress code back in 2005 because it was seen as unprofessional. And Michael Scott, one of the people who are famous for using these headbands, he said that he was told it was unprofessional. Not that it was a safety reason, but that it was unprofessional. And I don't understand. I understand David Stern and the dress code, wanting them to dress a little bit more professional, but I don't understand. You're on the court. This is your headwear. I don't understand the big difference between it and a headband. It's easier to use than a headband.
Yeah.
So,
and then on top of that, before last season, the NBA switched and they all use Nike-style jerseys now, so everything's sponsored by Nike. And the headbands are made by Nike, so I don't understand what the big deal would be there.
Because I don't think it's a Nike thing, because Nike wants their product, and Jimmy Butler going out there and wearing a headband, even though Jimmy Butler's to me the biggest guy on this list. Whenever you look at the list, you got Jared Allen, Drew Holiday, Mike Scott. These are all people that wear them, but Jimmy Butler is like the big guy that is popularizing these headbands. And with Nike making their own headbands, kids are going out there and like, I want to be like Jimmy. If you're from New Orleans, you're like, I want to be like Drew. So they're going out there and buying these things, and now the league's going to ban them. So I don't know where they really go from here. But I definitely know it's not a Nike thing, because they're not going to hurt their profit. I mean, they won't even let LeBron change his jersey number because it would hurt profit. He has to wait until next year to do it. So
yeah,
it's definitely the league being very strange. But it's not out of character for them to be strange.
Yeah.
You can't wear a ninja headband no more, but you can wear a leopard print arm sleeve, or I think they banned the Supreme logo one that JR wore. But LeBron season opener, leopard print,
Yeah.
But it's just a strange thing for them to just ban it real quick.
All right, so next topic. So the Lakers are seeking a $1.75 million disabled player after Demarcus Cousins was injured. What do you think about this?
Well, to me, it seems like they're trying to make safety room. Like if one of their players go down, they want to be able to pull somebody maybe from the G League or something like that. I also feel like they might. So they're looking to exempt 1.7. DeMarcus Cousins is on a $3.5 million deal, so that leaves about, it's 1.7. But So there's only one player I can really think of that's willing to accept a $1.7 million role, right now, and that's Carmelo Anthony. So I feel like they might clear space for him. But to be honest with you, I'd rather just cut Boogie. It's tough because he's trying to do this comeback thing. He's gotten injured, and I feel like this was that last contract before he might have broke out. And I would like for them to keep him, maybe get him cheap again next summer, because he's going to be a good piece. If you can keep on getting this guy for under $5 million, he's not a salary cap hit, and he's going to ball if he can. But I don't know. I think for what they're trying to do with making room, instead of just making room for somebody who is desperate and wants to take this deal, I think you just cut Boogie. You have good centers. He's not going to play this year. Try again next year, but we know how Boogie is. He'll probably get a little hurt that you cut him.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if the Lakers want to keep him to try to play him in the playoffs, then I would definitely try to get that $1.75 million disabled player deal because, like you said, it gives them cushion in case another player gets hurt or they just want to sign somebody else to be on their roster. And on top of that, you still get the chance of Boogie playing. But if Boogie doesn't get the chance of playing this year, then I feel like you might as well just cut him.
Yeah. And
opens up a roster spot.
That's the thing. They have 14 guaranteed players deals, and I think you can only have 15.
Yeah.
So I don't see them really doing this exemption to bring somebody else in right off the bat, because that means immediately they got 15 guaranteed deals and one unguaranteed deal with Dwight Howard. So I just see them – I see it as just a cushion thing. I don't really see it as we got to hurry up and, grab another piece because Boogie's hurt. They got their piece I think they got the piece that they wanted with, Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee are going to be a great, defense and rebound guys. So.
Yeah. All right, so now say you're Andre Iguodala.
I'm Andre Iguodala.
Yeah. How would you feel about the Grizzlies denying your buyout and forcing you to report to training camp?
Well, at this stage in Andre's career, I don't see it as that bad of a thing. They've gotten rid of all their veterans. They had, I'm pretty sure they still have Joakim Noah, but they gotten rid of Dwight Howard, and before that they had Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, and now they're rebuilding and they have great young talent. You look at Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant. They're very young. I think they're if they're not in a complete rebuilding stage, they're definitely on their way.
Yeah.
But I think with Ja and Jaren Jackson that you could possibly see them do good. Jaren Jackson did very well last year. And Ja's another guy coming in that is pass first, and he's going to make your players better, and he's no scrub either. Yeah. So I feel like you take a guy like Andre Iguodala, who's a great locker room guy. For the past 6 years, all that we've heard from him in the Warriors is great. He's a Finals MVP, and I just feel like he's going to be a great veteran for these young guys he's still going to be a good piece to help y'all win games, and he's also going to bring up the confidence and teach these young players about the NBA.
Yeah. And then if you look at their roster, they also have two other young players in a Josh Jackson and a Grayson Allen. They both required them. They got Josh Jackson from Phoenix, and they got Grayson Allen from Utah. But if you look at their stats last year, they didn't do too hot. But if you look at their college stats, they were all-stars.
Yeah.
So I just feel like if you can get those two players to start rolling and find them, then you got four young players that can be really good. And then on top of that, if you look, they have players on their roster that they also got either by trade or free agency. Like they got Jay Crowder. He's had playoff success with Cleveland. They got Miles Plumlee. He's a pretty decent center. They got Kyle Anderson. He had a great career with San Antonio. Then they also have Jonas Valanciunas. He's had success with Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they got players that they can.
And that's why I say they're in a rebuild stage, but not really. I think they did their rebuilding, and the very young guys like Ja and the Jackson guys, those are still very young people. Valanciunas, I don't think he's even over 28. He might be. Uh, I don't really know, but he's another younger guy, but he's still an effective center. So it's almost like they can contend, but I don't see them making the playoffs just quite yet. They might surprise, but they're in the West, so it's harder. But I think Iggy's a great piece for them to keep. Just I don't know, even if he doesn't want to ride out his years there, what those young guys will learn if they're willing to learn from Iguodala, would be really great for them.
Yeah. But, I mean, I can see it both ways, too, because if I was Andre Iguodala and I'm kind of, like, starting to go downhill in my career, and also you're coming off a Warriors team who's had back-to-back-to-back finals appearances, it's kind of hard to go from that to a team who wasn't even in the playoffs last year.
They've been to the finals 5 out of 6 years, I believe, that he's been there.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's up to them trying to find a middleman.
What do you think about that? Do you think veteran players should still be look at somebody like Vince Carter. Vince Carter is definitely not chasing rings no more, but he still wants to play. Yeah. If you're in the shoes of an Andre Iguodala, you're on the decline. Do you want to still are you still trying to compete for championships, or are you just playing the game of basketball, the game that you love?
It all depends on who wants me. If I'm in Vince Carter's shoes, there's not many teams who's chasing that ring that would want him. But in Andre Iguodala's case, he's a great backup small forward. So in his case, I'd probably chase the ring.
Yeah, people sleep on Iggy because he was coming off the bench, but I mean he came off the bench and won Finals MVP.
Yeah.
And he's one of the few people that can bother LeBron. We haven't seen LeBron at that kind of level, but whenever he was at that level, he's always been a LeBron irritant. That's from his time at the Sixers, whenever he was with Denver, and now the time with the Warriors. So somebody that can irritate somebody as good as LeBron, I think he's still a usable piece. Yeah. He's still a championship piece. Coming off the bench and having that kind of leadership, he's still a good piece. So I'd have to agree with you.
And then some teams that were interested in him were Houston, Los Angeles, and also Golden State had mentioned something about wanting to get him back if he would reach a buyout.
But why do you want him back if you're going to trade him? What did they trade him for?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
So it's like I'd be scorned a little bit, because right before he got traded, he was on TV talking about how great a player Steph is, and I'm sure he still has that respect for Steph, but it was like he's talking about how great the Warriors are and everything like that. And I think 3 days go by and he's not on the team no more. I'd feel, and that's just me personally, I'd feel a type of way. But I'd see him more. The Rockets would be an interesting fit. The Lakers, that's any piece that they get's a good piece at this point. They got the pieces already, but another veteran guy, similar to that of Danny Green, doing what Danny Green's going to be doing over there.
See, my thing is I would like to see him go back to Philly.
Philly would be cool. It really would. And that'd be like D Wade just did this, where he was with an organization and then he returned for his final couple of years. That'd be cool to see Iggy go back to where it all started.
Or even Denver, because Denver's had playoff success, but they never actually had a player on their roster who's reached the finals.
Iggy was on there for 1 year, I think, and he was like, I want to go to the Warriors, and he was traded. So also, keep bringing us up. If you're a small forward, I'm going to include you in the discussion. You got to go to Brooklyn. That'd be,
with Kevin Durant out, they need someone.
Yeah, and somebody like that would be great. They already have chemistry, so he's not going to go there and step on KD's shoes. He knows his role. And I don't know, if the Nets want to keep on building this momentum that they've been building, I think that'd be a good move to do.
Yeah. And so Anthony Davis released a statement saying that I want to make sure me and LeBron are on the all-defensive team. And for me personally, I just want to be Defensive Player of the Year. How do you feel about that?
I'm glad that he's saying this. And I agree with everything that he's saying. But I do have a couple of little flags here and there. So the flags that I have do not contend, it doesn't matter about his Defensive Player of the Year, because he's always been a great defender. He's led the league in blocks many times, and he's always been in the running for that Defensive Player of the Year, except last year.
And 3 years in a row, he was on the all-defensive team.
Right, and then you also got to look, 2018 season, he was up for not only MVP, he was up for Defensive Player of the Year. There's only a few players in history that have been top 3 in both MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. And I believe Michael Jordan's on that list. Whenever he was on top 3, I think he won MVP, but he was also in the votings for Defensive Player of the Year. I know he won Defensive Player of the Year a couple times, but so I don't have no concern with that. And even getting LeBron on the first team doesn't seem like that hard of a task whenever you think about it, but you also got to realize that LeBron is getting up there in age. I think we saw a chip in that little armor that he's had because he's never been hurt. He's never really been hurt, and then he was out for like 17 games, 22 games, something like that last season.
Yeah.
So I think age is going to start playing a factor on LeBron, but he's also never had this long of a break. He hasn't had this long of a break in like 9 years, where he's really good at taking care of his body, and he's had longer to take care of his body. Usually he's still playing ball in almost June. So he's had much longer to take care of his body, and I hope that he has a little chip on his shoulder because of the narrative of what people have been saying about him, that, oh, Kawhi Leonard's now the best. Oh, the Kevin Durant became the best because he made a shot over LeBron in the finals. So I think he's got a little bit of chip in his shoulder, but I want to put a little pin in it because of age, going into year 17 and things like that. Anthony Davis also said in that quote that he wants to stretch the floor, and I'm pretty certain if Anthony Davis is knocking him down like, say, a Kevin Durant, including all of the rest of Anthony Davis's talent, that's the GOAT.
Yeah.
That's the modern day best player in the NBA. That would finally put him, because there was a time when AD was seen better than Giannis, but now it's like flipped. But to Giannis's credit, he's been winning games. But if Anthony Davis if he could stretch the floor like that,
if he can add that 3-point shot to his game, like he can shoot decent. It's not like he's a bad 3-point shooter.
He's always been serviceable. The guy used to play point guard.
Yeah, if he can be a consistent 3-point shooter along with his inside game and his defense, the Lakers are going to be a force you don't want to play against.
Most definitely.
All right, so what's your thoughts on load management, since we just talked about LeBron in his offseason?
Load management to me has always been a necessary evil. See, we're local. We're in Louisiana, so the Pelicans. Anthony Davis was hurt a lot. So let's say instead of pushing these players, well, first we got to have a winning record. But if your team's winning and you're a good team and you're playing somebody that maybe isn't so good, I understand giving your players a break. 82 games is daunting. A lot of rookies, they play like that, those 30 games, and they're good. But then you get to like 40 games and 50 games, and you start seeing a lot of these rookies, they hit like a wall.
And then you also got to think about, it's not just 82 games. You got preseason, you got postseason.
Postseason. All-star
basketball, if you play that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot.
Some of these guys play basketball year-round at a competitive level.
Yeah, if you watch the all-season, they're all in the gym playing pickup games.
Exactly. So I don't mind. It's weird because I see the reasoning behind it. These players need a break. They need to get their body. All the advances in medicine show that you need a break. Like, even if you're hitting the gym and you're working out, you're supposed to have a rest day in between of all your working out. So I understand why they're doing it. And if it gives your team a ring at the end, you look at LeBron who was able to take a couple games off, and then you see him in the playoffs and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know he could be better than what he was during the regular season.
Yeah.
But it does have its negative effects, especially I'm a Lakers fan. So whenever the Lakers play the Pelicans, I'm going to buy that ticket.
You want to see LeBron.
And then, exactly, whenever you pre-order these tickets so that they're cheaper, and then, so I bought my tickets in Christmas to get the last game that the Lakers played with the Pelicans. And that was right whenever LeBron just came off of his injury. And not just LeBron, but Anthony Davis had too. So I was sitting there watching, and these are still pros, and I still love the game. But I was sitting there watching JaVale McGee, and Brandon Ingram wasn't even at the time. I think he was doing his blood. So it was like Alex Caruso was like the player of the game that game. And that's no disrespect to Alex Caruso, but it's like I didn't pay to see Alex Caruso. I paid to see the players that I don't really get to see because they only play each other in New Orleans twice a year, if twice. Sometimes they only play each other 3 times a year, and only one of those will be in New Orleans. So it's like I paid to see you, and I'm happy that he showed up because he was on the bench. A lot of times they'll do something else, but he actually traveled with the team, so I guess I got to see him. But I wanted to see him play. It would have been my first time seeing LeBron play in an actual game and not just on the TV. So I was excited, but
in LeBron's case, I don't see him doing much of load management this season.
No.
After that long off season.
No. And it's successful though, because even Kawhi Leonard, he missed 22 games last season, and granted they had a lot of injuries that it ended up in a ring. That season where LeBron gets a lot of flack for load management was, I believe, the 2016 finals. Whenever he won, that 2016 season is the season where he played great in the playoffs. So, and he showed that he can.
See, my thing is, I think load management the best time to use it, first round of playoffs. Mm-hmm. If you're a team that can sweep another team, you're playing 7 games.
So you're talking about like somebody like, well, I'd rather go to the East than the West, because I was going to say somebody like the Warriors from last year, or maybe the year before that, playing somebody like, I don't know who's the AC last year, like the Nuggets, or 2 years ago. Maybe playing somebody like the Nuggets or somebody where you don't need all your pieces, or at least instead of load management and not letting these players play at all, I think they should just have minutes restrictions.
Yeah.
I would like that a lot more. I think that fixes both problems, because instead of them completely not suiting up and just sitting there on the bench making jokes, we can actually see, even if, so they average like 33 minutes a game, play them 12. Cut their minutes in half. But I mean, you still got to make them a starter, obviously, but give that second guy a little bit of work. And especially if you have somebody behind your superstar that's younger, like last year LeBron and Brandon Ingram, or Kyle Kuzma. If you got somebody behind them that's really young, give those minutes to him, because that's whenever you develop your young players, is in those games where you give them more control and they're not having to defer to the superstar. So I think, resting in the playoffs, but that's the playoffs. I don't know how much I want to rest. I think minutes restrictions would be a lot. It wouldn't get it as much flack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion on it.
Can you sympathize with Dwight Howard?
Yes and no.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, what do you feel about it?
Yeah, I feel like the guy's been through a lot. He's been bouncing from team to team, trying to find a home, trying to find the old Dwight Howard. But at the same time, he had the chance coming off of Orlando going to LA, where he was still a superstar, He was still defensive player of the year. He could still play ball. But he didn't want to try to play alongside with Kobe. He didn't want to be that second man. He wanted to be the man in LA. No. And he just couldn't accept his role. That's where I say no. But at the same time, he's back in LA, so I kind of feel bad for him now. I hope that he can rebuild his legacy, and that's just my take on it.
I feel bad for the take that he's washed up. That's what I sympathize with, because the guy, I think it was Ron Artest was talking about Dwight Howard in that time that they spent together in LA. The dude had like a bulge coming out of his back and was still suiting up before he eventually shut it down for the while. I think it was towards the end of the season. But playing injured and also traveling to these other teams, his time at the Rockets and his time with Charlotte, his time with the Hawks, the couple games he might have played for the Wizards. He's still a productive big man. He's just in a different big man world. So I sympathize with the fact that he plays injured and there's this narrative that he's washed up. But I also can't sympathize with somebody that's pushed their way out of nearly the 3 places that they were contending. He forced his way out of, first he's like, I want out, then I don't want out, and he's like, no, I want out. So he forced his way out of Orlando, and he played, like how you said, he played with Kobe, and he didn't want that second role. He didn't even want a 1B. A lot of successful, look at the super team in the Warriors, there's the definitive 1A, 1B, 1C. None of those people are a number 2. They're all 1A, 1B. He didn't even want to be a 1B. If he wasn't the guy, he wasn't interested. Not even running. So you look back, he had beef with Steve Nash because Steve Nash wanted to run pick and roll. And Dwight Howard's like, no, I just want to post people up. It's like, dude, look at what he was doing with Amari Sotomayor. If you run that with Steve Nash, that's very effective. And then the beef with Kobe is similar to that beef that he had with James Harden, because James Harden and Kobe Bryant. they were supposed to be James Harden and Dwight Howard were supposed to be the next Kobe Shaq duo, and he didn't want to take another role to anybody else, and we kind of see that with Shaq too. You know, that was a big problem with Kobe and Shaq. I don't want to take a secondary role, but LeBron went to the Heat and took a secondary role. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I can sympathize with him a
Then
little
he went
bit.
to Houston where he could have contended too.
Who? Dwight Howard? Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, he pushed his way out of Houston too because butting heads with James Harden.
Yeah, but I think that was good for him going to Houston too because it kind of brought out the superstar in Clint Capella.
Yeah, Clint Capella's been doing good things. I was actually hoping last year whenever he was up for that, it seemed like a while before he got signed. I was hoping he was going to go to the Lakers with Bron.
So, if you were trying to build a dynasty, who would you start your team off with?
Right off the bat, Ben Simmons. There's nobody. He's a top 50 player in the NBA, and he's the youngest top 50 player of the year. There might be some other ones, but whenever I think who's the youngest player that's going to come to my team and immediately make a difference, it's Ben Simmons. Much like what LeBron does, he goes to the team, and so LeBron went to the Heat, and he made Mario Chalmers like a knockdown three-point shooter. He goes to other places, and he makes these people like great shooters and everything like that. He finds people. That's just a lot of what you could say for Ben Simmons. The only thing that Ben Simmons has that's against him is his three-point shooting, which I can live with because he's still 60% from the field. Like, yeah, I'm not taking 3 points because that's going to knock down my percentage. It's not an effective shot for me. I can't make them consistently. I'd rather drive to the hole, which who really stops him? If you're shooting 60%, nobody's really stopping you. He's a pass-first guy, so he drives to the hole. You build the team around him that can shoot because he can't. And we're in a modern NBA where even people like Maurice Spates and like these guys that we never thought would be shooters are now shooters. So I can live with you not being a shooter because we have shooters in the league. I'm going to build that around you. And I just feel like he's going to be the one to make the biggest difference.
My first choice would have been Donovan Mitchell, just because he came out of Louisville and automatically he was a superstar. The dude's averaging 23.8 points per game in his first 2 seasons. He's made the playoffs both years. He's been top 4 in the West both years so far. And the man can play.
Yeah, definitely. I actually was on that boat that said Donovan Mitchell deserved the Rookie of the Year over Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons, in my opinion, wasn't a rookie that year. I don't like that narrative that whenever you miss your rookie year that you get to be a rookie the next year.
That happened with Blake Griffin. He was hurt in his second year. He ended up getting Rookie of the Year.
But I would say that Donovan Mitchell wasn't as impressive as he was 2 years ago as he was like this last year. He wasn't that impressive. He had a great coming out party, but the sequel to his movie kind of flopped at the box office a little bit. I still think he's Spider Mitchell and everything like that, but I don't know if it's because they added more pieces maybe, but I definitely am interested in what the Jazz do this upcoming season with another ball distributor.
And then I would think Devin Booker would be a great player too to start around. I mean, he kind of went to his Suns team, but here's the thing: the Suns have been like so terrible for a long time now. So like, there's not many players who want to go play over there, even though Devin Booker is there.
I can kind of understand why. He's a great young talent, but he's like a young James Harden at this point. Mm-hmm. I feel like everything's running through him, and the guy's talented, but everything's running through him. So if he's not making big stats, much like James Harden, if you're shooting the ball 30 times and you're not making 30-something points, then I don't understand what you're doing. You know, they run the thing through him, and he's another guy that I feel like has tunnel vision. He thinks he's a great player, but I think he thinks that he's a step above. My second player would probably be somebody along the lines of either Luka Doncic or Lonzo Ball. Probably Luka would be my more definitive because he's another guy that I feel like makes people better. And Luka's just a flat-out baller, man. Like, where do you want me to shoot? So Luka's definitely – I say Ben Simmons just because of he's huge and he's nimble, and I just see a lot of LeBron's game in him. But Luka is definitely like a number two.
I picked Luka was on my list too. He averaged 21.2 points per game as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
My honest opinion of him, I thought he was going to come into the league and he wasn't going to do anything. If you look at him, he's 6'7". Like, yeah, he's got height on him. He doesn't look athletic.
No, not at all.
Not at all. So that's where I came into it, where I was like, oh, he's going to come into the league. He's going to be a bust. Like, yeah, he did his thing over there in Europe, but
Whenever he got drafted, the only people I remember that were like making a lot of noise were the Mavs fans. It's like, dude, he's from like, I can't even pronounce the country that he's from. Why am I worried? You know?
yeah.
And
But, I mean, that's what Dallas did. They did the same thing by picking Dirk Nowitzki.
yeah,
So we'll see how that goes. And then on top of that, they just did that trade where they got Porzingis.
yeah.
So he's getting some help there.
I saw this joke. I think it was on the Bleacher Report's little mini-series Game of Zones or whatever. And it was whenever they were doing the lottery pick or whatever. Instead of just sending one player, they sent Luka, Porzingis, and I don't even remember the other guy's name. But he's like, why did y'all send three? And he's like, oh, I'm the next Dirk. He's like, wait, I'm the next Dirk. And the other guys were like, well, Dirk told me I'm the next Dirk. And then like Dirk comes out the shadows and he's like, you all together, next Dirk.
And then also on my list, I had Trae Young. He was second running for Rookie of the Year. His first half of the season wasn't too hot, but then he ended up stepping it up where he was averaging actually 26 per game at the second half of the season, which brought his average up to 19.1 points per game. And my player comparison to him is kind of like a Steph Curry. He can shoot the ball from deep. He's consistent with shooting the ball. He's not scared to shoot the ball. And he can also pass well whenever he needs to. The only thing is he is small.
Yeah. The only thing that Trae Young almost won Rookie of the Year off of his narrative. You know, if there wasn't another big story like Luka, Trae Young's definitely a lock for, Rookie of the Year. I see a lot of Steph in him because Steph was somebody that they're like, well, what can I really do with a 6-foot guy that can shoot? Imagine being a GM and saying those words today. What am I going to do with a 6-foot guard that can shoot? You probably have your job on the line. And Trae Young is a 6-foot guard who can shoot, and especially what he did for the Hawks towards the end of the season. So I see that one too. My pick, Alonzo. A lot of people like to hate on Lonzo. I know living in Louisiana, a lot of things I hear is I don't want Lonzo on my team, and it's like Lonzo's almost considered a bust. But tell me the list of point guards who can defend and pass better than Lonzo, and that list isn't very long. A lot of these point guards that we give credit for. So the only thing Lonzo doesn't do that people like to critique on is score.
Yeah, but Lonzo's a true point guard.
Exactly. You want to inflate the stats of a Russell Westbrook, of a James Harden. Who else is another guy that even Ben Simmons? You want to inflate stats of people that are point guards that do all three categories: points, rebounds, and assists. But Lonzo does that. These guys that get all these points are people that aren't pass first, but they get the ball and they pass out of their shot, and somebody's got to be open because they acquire so much attention. Lonzo gets almost 10 assists from finding people and his ball IQ. Lonzo is up there with the LeBrons and others with his ball IQ.
And you also got to think of he's playing in New Orleans now. New Orleans is going to be a really good defensive team. You got to think about it. You got Lonzo at the 1 with Drew at the 2. You got 2 6'7" guards who strive on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 lockdown defenders right there.
So I heard this opinion yesterday, and I kind of want to get your feedback on it. This is kind of like way off the rails. I know we didn't even discuss this, but what do you feel like the Pelicans making a move for Steven Adams off of the Thunder? Maybe giving up Etuan Moore a pick and some cash for Steven Adams.
I like it.
Yeah?
I'd get rid of Derek Favors.
They just signed Derek
They just
Favors,
signed
and
him.
he's a great piece.
He's a
But
great
I would
player,
also, if I can
but-
get Steven Adams out of Etuan Moore and Derek Favors,
And
all
also,
day.
we're doing the same thing we always done. Anthony Davis at the 5 instead of the 4. Derek Favors is in the true 5. He's a 4.
Right.
He's playing the 5 position. So if we can trade him, I get rid of him and Etuan Moore. Getting rid of Etuan Moore clears a lot of space, a lot of money. So you can get rid of them too and flip them for Steven Adams. That's good right there.
And whenever I say get rid of Etuan Moore, a lot of people that I've talked to about this is, it's like, why would you want to get rid of Etuan Moore? You know, like, he's a good piece. It's like you have Etuan Moore 2.0 and Josh Hart. You know, Josh Hart is going to play harder defense, and he can shoot a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like some guy that's going to – Josh Hart also moves. Etuan Moore is a spot-up shooter right now. So it's like, yeah, I got a guy.
If you watch Josh Hart's highlights from last year, it's not just shooting. It's not just defense.
Yeah, he's
the
a
dude
scorer.
can handle the ball. The dude can attack the hole. He has highlights doing a bunch of things on the court. He has blocks. He has steals. Like, he does everything on the court. So, yeah, I feel like he is better than Etuan Moore.
And then if you take that into context, it's like, all right, we're going to upgrade our shooting guard from Etuan Moore to Josh Hart. And we're going to also flip Derek Favors, who is a great defensive player, for a even better, like, Steven Adams is a beast, dude.
And then you get rid of Etuan Moore, that clears up another roster spot. We can sign somebody.
Yeah. And the Pelicans are going to be good. They're just going to be playing in the West. They're either going to be an 8 seed or right on the cusp of an 8 seed. So I don't think the pick's going to be that much of it's not going to matter that much. Etuan Moore, Frank, what's his name? Frank Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Give up Etuan Moore, Frank Jackson, Etuan Moore, Frank Jackson, and Derek Favors. If they want to pick, give them the pick for Steven Adams. And that does sound like a lot because it's a lot of players, but it's not. But I would try to keep Derek Favors before agreeing to trade him. Like, my first trade offer is not including Derek Favors, because if you don't include him, it's just a lot of defense.
Yeah.
So, and if you got to include him, it's not that big of a loss because you're getting an even better defender.
Yeah.
And you're getting a definitive 5 besides Jaleel.
And since we're on the topic of the Pelicans, another person that I had on my list of who I'd build my team around was Zion Williamson. He's coming out of college. He had a really good season. I mean, we've seen his highlights. Of course, he's a high-flying dunker, but, like, he's coming to the NBA. We know what we need to build him on. His jump shooting, he can handle the ball. Like, there's a lot that we can improve him on. And he has a good mindset of the game. He can run the court. He's athletic. And he has the most hype behind him, like, coming into the league since LeBron.
Yeah. Zion's a good piece, but I don't want to start my team with just Zion. He's a great piece, but I feel like you would – if I pick Ben Simmons or Alonzo Ball or Luka Doncic, one of these ball distributors, and Zion's still on the board, definitely a lock for my second pick. Yeah. But I don't know if I'm starting a team with somebody who's just known for driving and fast breaks.
Yeah, and since we're talking about good defense, another good player that I could see building a team around would be kind of like how Sacramento's building their team around De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. De'Aaron Fox is from Louisiana. You knew that?
No.
Yeah, he grew. I think he was born here. He's not. He wasn't raised here, but I think he was born here.
The kid's fast and he has excellent defense.
Very quick.
But if I would have to build my team around a duo, it would be Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic.
Jamal Murray and Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good squad right there. Because what's crazy is you got your distributor as your big guy, you know, so the little guy actually gets to run around a lot.
It's kind of how the Warriors do sometimes. Draymond with the ball, Steph getting open.
Yeah. That's why whenever KD was mad because Draymond took it down at like the beginning of last season, and he's like, "Why are you mad? This is what I've been doing." You know what I mean? So, but duo is hard. I guess I would try to go with Ben Simmons, and then I want a shooter. I want an all-around guy. So I don't know. I'd probably go, if I'm doing duos, I'll probably go Luka and Zion. If I'm doing duos. If I'm doing trios, it's probably Luka, Ben Simmons, and Jaren Allen.
If I'm doing trios, I'm going back to Miami Heat with Chris Bosh, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade.
You can't start a franchise with somebody that's retired. Two people that are retired and one that's, you know.
But I mean, if you doing like who's in the NBA now, I would do Steph, Clay, and Draymond. That's who I would take on my team as a 3 players.
That is,
They've made it work.
and you're gonna win for at least the next 5 years if you're just doing a 3-man league. But
Yeah.
I believe that's all the time that we have today. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe. We're gonna be back here next week on Zone 623. We have added our Twitter handles up in the corners right here. See you next time.